When children are removed from their homes and placed in a cold environment waiting to learn their faith, it can be very traumatizing. What if there was a place where children could wait until placed in a foster home? Somewhere that's inviting and encouraging. That was the vision God put on Ronda Paulson's heart, founder and executive director of Isaiah117 House. Stay tuned to hear how this ministry is impacting the lives of many children.
In 2014, I knew nothing about foster care. I didn't know what DCS stood for. I didn't know anything about the plight of the children as they enter the system. All I knew is that I was supposed to adopt. Week 7 of that foster care training, they had us meet in the Department of Children's Services. And we were sitting in a conference room and there were no windows, and the gentleman leading the class said, when a child is removed from their home, they come here. And I looked around this room that was far from inviting and I thought, surely he's wrong. And so I raised my hand and I said, I'm sorry, sir, but when you mean a child comes here, what do you actually mean? And he said, a little girl slept in this room last night. And in that moment, God said, these are my children, Rhonda. What are you going to do? How do you bring a child into your home? You can't halfway love a child. You're going to love them 100%. And even though you don't know that's in you, it is. And then the court call and say, they have to go back. That scared us to death. But I never will forget the moment that we both were like, it's not about us. This might not turn out the way we want it to turn out at all, but Isaiah still needs a mama today. And Isaiah still needs a daddy today. We had this moment and God showed up with joy, and God showed up and blessed our efforts, because that's what He's calling all of us to do, is get outside ourselves and get outside our fears. And when we do, when we stand in that place of unknown, that's where He is. And that's what we found through foster care. Every aspect of this community got behind and got excited about what if there was a home. So when we headed out into Carter County with this dream of what if there was a house, a few things happened. I got my first ever Facebook page. I'd never been on the Facebook. So we started posting and sharing, and people started liking and sharing, and all of a sudden there was like this social media craze right here in our little Carter County bubble. And then we decided to sell some t-shirts. We had 100 orders in 30 minutes, and I probably believed somewhere that this was a one-time, wow, Carter County, what a cool place to live. And then Greene County did the same thing, and then Washington County did it, and then Sullivan County did it, and now Blunt's doing it, and Rutherford, and Knox. It's like, once the community is aware that not in some far off land, not somebody else's children, the children of your community feel unloved and feel that there's no hope. And once the community is made aware, the entire community gets behind it. As we move forward, our mission stays the same. No child sits in a cubicle or a conference room. No child feels alone or hopeless on that day of removal. That is our mission. And it started as a mission for no child in Carter County. It's turned into a mission of no child throughout the state of Tennessee. And if I'm honest, and it scares me, it's a mission of no child anywhere.
Well, Hi, friends. Welcome to the Everlasting Love Program. I'm your host, Barbara Karpuzian, and I am so glad that you decided to join us. I hope that you enjoyed the video that you saw at the top of the program by Ronda Paulson, who is the founder of Isaiah117 House, and we're going to be learning much more about that ministry. But I want to read a scripture to you that comes from Ephesians 3:18, because I believe that it's the love of God in us that compels us to do the work of the kingdom. And in Ephesians 3:18 it says, "And may you have the power to understand, as all God's people should, how wide, how long, how high, and how deep his love is." And it's his love that's shed abroad in our hearts that compels us to serve him and to do the work of the kingdom. Because realistically, we're pretty self-centered. We're pretty self-focused. It's all about us. And I want to say to you, if you don't know him today, that I want to encourage you to just call on him. You don't need any fancy words. Bible says, if you call on me, that I will hear and I will answer. And you just have to say, Jesus, I want to know you. I want to make you the Lord of my life. I recognize my own depravity as a person, my own shortcomings, weaknesses, and I want you to take charge of my life and come and reside in me. And when you do that, what happens is the Holy Spirit comes to live in your life and empower you to live the life really that the Lord has ordained for you. And it's an exciting journey. It's not boring by any means, being a believer and serving him, because when you ask him to come into your life, then you'll fulfill the destiny, your true destiny as a believer. Amen to that. Mm-hmm. So I would like to segue into our program. Quick note, you'll see some information pop up on the screen, our website, YouTube channel, other social media platforms. A great way to get in contact with us if you have any questions about the program, need some prayer, looking for a Bible study. Feel free to reach out, and then we will do our best to get back to you. So I want to introduce our guests. Yay! They've traveled from afar. And so we have Emily Sampson and Holly Hess, who are both program coordinators with Isaiah117 House. And they are here to represent
That's right.
that ministry today. And we just can't wait to hear about the great work that you all are doing. But first, we want to hear about the both of you. And so, Emily, we'll start with you. Tell us about your own faith journey.
Absolutely. Well, I grew up in a Christian home. My parents were both Christians, and I have an older sister, so they raised both of us in the faith. We went to church weekly. We went to Bible study. We did missions trips, and it was just a wonderful and almost a charmed childhood, really. I went to a Christian school from 4th grade, and I graduated from that high school. And then I went to a Christian college. And everyone around me was a Christian, or was supposed to be, really, or I thought they were. And it wasn't until I transferred to Purdue, which is a secular college, that my relationship with Jesus truly became personal for me. At Purdue, I could have become anybody. You know, nobody knew me. Nobody was watching down and staring at me and watching everything that I'm doing. I could have decided to go any way that I wanted to go, but those foundations, those building blocks of faith that my parents instilled in me as a child truly were the building blocks of my faith. And it became personal to me, and I chose to follow Jesus and have that relationship be very personal.
Mm-hmm. And what does that look like on a college campus, right? Where, like you said,
tough.
it's kind of a culture shock of
many
different belief systems and identities. And how do you?
It really was. It really opened my eyes, and especially when it comes to standing up for what I believe in, even in the classroom, and not being judgmental of others.
It's good.
Yeah, really coming into my own of what I truly believe in, not because my parents told me to, but because that's rooted in the faith and it's rooted in the truth of the Bible.
I love that. It's great that Mom and Dad raised you up in the instruction of the Lord, but like what you said, you believe it because you have found it to be the truth.
Yes.
And it's rooted in Scripture, so that's so good. And you've stayed the course.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're far beyond college now,
Yes.
right? So what did life look like after?
2 weeks after I graduated, I got married.
Okay, whoa, all right.
My husband is named Daniel, and he and I both found even before we got married that God was calling us towards foster care and adoption. And we felt that very strongly, calling from God.
He felt that as well.
He did. And it was through his job that he had some experience and exposure to foster care, and it really opened both of our eyes to the reality of foster care in our community. And we knew that we wanted to do foster care and adoption, not as a plan B if we didn't have our own biological children or if it didn't work out, but that God was calling us to do that as primary, that we should be really focused on that. So just a year after marriage, we became foster parents, and we welcomed 3 toddlers into our home.
3 toddlers?
Yes.
Some people are going, no.
1 toddler is more than
It's a lot.
I mean, I'm a grandparent, and I'm watching a toddler right now, and I'm like, I need lots of energy just to.
It was hugely eye-opening, just as for our marriage. It was not.
Yeah.
It was difficult at the beginning. Our kids were 2, 2.5, and 3, and not only was it eye-opening as parents, none of the training can prepare you for that. None of the we did all sorts of training and read all sorts of books, and we thought, oh, we'll be great parents, and then reality hits. But just that added layer of trauma. These children have been through so much and experienced incredible loss, the loss of a sibling, and the loss of their biological family, and the loss of other foster families. We weren't their first foster parents. And so it was hugely eye-opening to the brokenness of the foster care system, and we felt God saying we want to do more.
Wow. And so are they still with you, these 3?
They are. So our 3, we adopted them. They are now ages 7, 8, and 9. And so life is still really crazy and really hard, but we get to see the healing power of God in their lives.
That's so amazing.
It's incredible. It's an absolute gift.
So you are one that adopted, because I know that doesn't always transition that way, but in your case, you were able to adopt.
Yes, for these 3 children. In total, we've had 14 children in our home. Through foster care and respite services, and there were different outcomes for those children. We've had some really tough cases, but some really beautiful redemption stories in the midst of brokenness, which is the whole story of the gospel, is the redemption and the brokenness.
Yes, and we're going to want to hear more about that. I know you even have some stories to share with us, too, so I'm looking forward to that. Holly, tell us more about you and your faith journey.
Well, when I was younger, we went to church with my grandparents when I was little, and then when we were 9, when I was 9, we moved away from them, and then we became, what did you call them, Christesters? Creasters. We call them C&E Christians. So we would go to church on Christmas and Easter, and then I would sometimes go with friends, but if I was spending the night, on a Saturday night or whatever. But so through high school and college, I kind of got away from my faith a little bit, but I'm so glad that my grandparents, they're the best people I've ever known, so faithful. And I'm so glad they did that, because those were the seeds that were planted in me, that when I went through my rebellious phase and in college, I dropped out of college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do really with my life for 2 years. And then when I went back, I met a really good friend who was a Christian. And I started going to church with her again and kind of found my way back. And
Wow.
and like I had all this head knowledge. Because when I was young, I had done like the girls' Bible studies and like all those activities. And I knew my Bible stories, had all this head knowledge, but it hadn't really connected with my heart.
Yeah.
And like that's what I should be doing with my life and who I am as a person. And so I just began that journey over on, by myself as an adult. And so similar to what Emily did. And it was a long time before I met my husband. I didn't meet my husband until I was 27, I think. And we already had 3 kids by then. But we met at church.
Wonderful.
And so I just feel like that was a promise fulfilled. I knew God would lead me somewhere. And so I met him, and we got married in the Chicagoland area. And yeah, we've kept 2 biological children. They're 14 and 12. And so
So
we go to church and raising them in the faith.
I love the stories of the staying the course, and even for those who veer off course, you see the faithfulness of God. I bet Grandma and Grandpa were praying, and others were praying, right?
Sure.
And that's like we said at the top of the program, how wide, how long, how deep His love is. Like He wanted you.
Yes.
It's like, it's okay, Holly, you can have your little diversion here, but I'm coming for you.
It's funny because the summer before I started those fall classes, when I went back to finish my degree, is when those God billboards were appearing, the black ones with the white writing.
Yeah.
And it would say, and those hit me like a ton of bricks. And then like I would see like the shadow from the tree outside my bedroom window cast across on my floor. Like it was just like these little things, and I was like, okay, I understand. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
He called me. Like he
But
called me.
sort of the common thread in both of your stories was really finding Him for yourself,
Yes.
which I think is even important for if there are parents that are watching, is that we raise up our children in the instruction of the Lord, and we stand on the promise. And you have children now that one day, even if they do go off course, that they'll come back, right? And that's that's what we do, right? I remember my daughter, I have daughters that are millennials, and one of them said to me, she said, "Mom, you have to trust that all the tools and everything you and Dad gave to us, that we got it, and now you have to just trust that we're going to implement those things in our lives." And so thank God for His faithfulness. And here you both are now.
Yes.
And what brings you? So you already knew. You and your husband already had this like call.
We were neck deep in foster care.
In foster care, right?
Yes.
And Holly, what about you? Because you have 2 of your own.
Yes.
And how did you get involved?
Well, my husband used to, on his drive to work, he used to see signs about foster care on his route. And we talked about it a lot, but our kids were really little then. And I was scared. We didn't know what we would be introducing, to them. And so we kind of sat on it, as you tend to do. Sat on it, still sitting on it. But then when I got the call for Isaiah117 house, I think that God will either use this to fulfill that calling, like this is what He wants me to do, or push me further down that road. And we're just kind of going through that right now. So now that our kids are older and I'll be neck deep in foster care, we may.
Well, and everyone has a different role and a different purpose,
Yes.
right? You're a part of this ministry. And so you said you got a call. So how did that happen?
Well, I came to Isaiah117 house through that age-old method that God has always used to call His people, the Facebook.
Now, what scripture is that?
You can find that in Revelation.
Somewhere, right?
Somewhere.
And knowledge shall increase. The book of Daniel.
But in 2019, my mom passed away.
Okay.
And I was lost. She was probably my very best friend, maybe besides my husband. And then our church split.
Oh.
We lost our pastor.
Oh.
And then at the beginning of 2020,
Yes.
COVID,
Wow.
everything shut down. violence, riots, marginalized people getting pushed further to the side.
Yes.
And I just didn't know what to do. I was so helpless and hopeless and didn't know where to turn or what to do. But thank goodness God knew. God knew I would often retreat to my phone and just scroll the lives of my family and friends, you know, sharing their joys, sharing their sorrows, have a laugh, you know. And I came across a video that some of my high school classmates had shared. And so I watched it. It was hosted by Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy. Cried out to God. It was this amazing video about a way that we could help struggling children find love. And it just hit me that I could take all of the love that my mom had given me
It's okay.
and just turn it out 100-fold.
Yeah.
Not just to my own kids, but to
others.
all these children.
Yeah.
And I just decided that cancer would not be her legacy. Love will be her legacy.
Yes, that's right. And that will be your legacy too. Love. Yeah. So good.
Yeah. So, then, so the really funny thing is, our ministry started in Tennessee, and Rhonda may have mentioned that in the video. In Carter County. I'm from Carter County, Tennessee.
Oh.
And I was like, wait, what? Nothing's in Carter County. Like, this doesn't make any sense. I was like, okay, God, I'm listening. You have my attention. And so I kept watching, and as the video goes on, it shows Rhonda and her family, and it showed her husband. So Rhonda's name didn't really mean anything to me, but when they showed her husband, his name was Corey Paulson. And I went to high school with Corey Paulson in Bloomington, Indiana.
Oh, wow.
And so,
Okay, Lord.
I'm in. I'm listening. You have me. So I reached out, and I found out that there was already a ministry at an Isaiah117 house starting in Tippecanoe County, where we're from. Yeah.
Man, you know, you hear these stories, and it's like, this is not coincidence.
It's not coincidence.
There's nothing coincidental about it
No.
at all.
No. And I always say this, but it's so funny that we know God will work and we expect him to work. We
Yes.
pray that he will. And then when he does, we're always overwhelmed.
Yes.
It's still overwhelming no matter what. So.
But even the whole foster care piece with your husband at the beginning, and then for this to come around, it's not like you were looking for foster care videos,
No,
right?
not at all.
And
Yeah.
then God just, wow.
Yeah.
That
Really
that's
powerful.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, and on top of all of that, I didn't know how prevalent Isaiah117 house was. I thought maybe a lot of places have it, and of course there's one in Tippecanoe County. There were at the time there were only 5 counties in Indiana that had an Isaiah117 house.
Wow.
And God had already started one where he had planted me.
Beautiful. Wow.
So it just
Yeah.
What about you, Emily? So you were
Yeah.
already fostering, but then you get
were
involved
fostering.
with this ministry.
Well, I saw that same video with Mike Rowe. I didn't know who Mike Rowe
Wow.
was.
Wow.
It went viral.
Does he know
It was a
that
viral
you
video.
saw this?
He does.
does he know that we saw it?
I don't know if he knows about us, but we know about him, and we know about that video. And it just gripped my heart because I heard Rhonda share her experiences as a foster mom and how God was calling her towards more, to build this house, to change the way that foster care began in her community. And I felt that my heart echoed hers in so many ways, and that God was really calling me. And so I wiped my tears because I had sobbed the whole way through.
If you watch this video, have some Kleenex nearby.
Absolutely. And I was just broken. And I sent it to my husband, and I commented on the video, like, we desperately need this here in Tippecanoe County. And then I thought, okay, God, I'm going to think about who could do this, because this is way too big for me. I don't know how to build a house. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to raise funds. I don't know. I'm not a big public speaker. I'm not really into that. I'm just a foster mom, you know.
I love
But
that.
then-
I'm just a foster mom.
Just
And
a
the
mom.
Lord's like, yeah, that's all I need. It's just a foster mom, right?
Yeah, and so a couple months later in 2020, in that summer, I saw that there was an Isaiah117 house coming to 2 counties close to me. And then I thought, oh, it's in Indiana. And I felt a little jealous. And God stirred my heart and said,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
because the children of our community need it
Yes.
so desperately. And it doesn't matter that I don't know how to build a house. It doesn't matter that I don't know how any of this starts or how to do any of it, because God's got it. And He's in charge of it all.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about it. I just have to take that next step and say yes. And so I did interviews and trips down to Tennessee, and I was approved to expand it to Tippecanoe County of March of 2021. And that's when I met Holly, is at the very beginning. She was a volunteer, and then we both became program coordinator.
So you met her where?
At the very first kickoff at our public announcement that we are starting an Isaiah117 house. It was an event in the midst of COVID, so only 50 people could come, and we all had to wear masks. But we had it.
And then you showed up at that
Showed
event?
up and said, I wanted to do this. And I said, too late.
And I said, thank you, Jesus. Because there's no way. I don't think I could do what she did.
Yeah, and she was, and we've been fast friends ever since.
Wow.
So,
All right, so we keep hearing about this Isaiah117
Yes.
house. So tell us about it. Like, where does the name come from?
Absolutely.
For those who saw the top of the program, they got
Yeah.
an intro through Ronda Paulson.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Isaiah117 House is a nonprofit ministry that is just sweeping the nation to change the way that foster care begins in communities. And so our mission is to build a home for children to go and to wait and receive the comfort and care that they need while they're awaiting foster care placement. So that transition time from removal to placement.
How long is that usually?
Well,
Or how long can it be?
yeah, it could be any.
2 hours, 7 hours, overnight, multiple days.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It just depends.
Yeah. And so our mission is to have a home and not an office.
So
Yeah.
talk about that. Do they wait in an office, or what is?
Yeah.
So on removal day, I'd never heard of removal day, but it's traumatizing for children. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
when a DC, a Department of Child Services caseworker comes to remove a child from an unsafe situation, at best, it's a difficult separation from that parent or that caregiver who's not doing what they need to do for that child. And then the worst case, it's like a dangerous, volatile police intervention. So it can run the gamut of anywhere in between there. And so then the caseworker brings them to their office. In our county, it's on the 3rd floor of a building downtown. And it's a very nice office, but it's an office. It has government-issued furniture, plain, simple accommodations. You know, they're not really frivolous with the money for that department. And so kids are coming in dirty, hungry, lonely, scared. They're not just separated from their biological parents and their physical home. They're separated from all their comforts, their toys, their pets, maybe even their siblings. And, you know, the caseworker has to start making phone calls and doing background checks and filling out paperwork. And those kids are probably sitting at their feet, hearing those phone calls,
Oh my Lord.
trying to find someone who will say yes. And that just compounds the trauma that they've already started feeling that day.
Yeah. And this isn't a bash on caseworkers, because
all.
these Department of Child Services caseworkers go above and beyond
They try
daily.
their very best.
They absolutely do, but this was never their job. You know, Isaiah chapter 1, verse 17 says, learn to do right, seek justice, encourage the oppressed, defend the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. And that's not God talking to the Department of Child Services. That's God talking to us.
To the church.
To the church, to His followers. It is the foundation of this ministry. It's our job to care for these children.
How many children could be in an office at one time?
Sibling sets of 7, you know, get removed. There are children in offices around this country at any
now.
given time.
Well, I never, because I was very well aware of the foster care system and all, but I didn't realize that there was this and when I was reading about it, like this interim
There's a
spot.
gap. There's a gap.
Where these kids are just
Yeah.
in a cold environment, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, and I mean, and most offices have you know, a sink where they can wash up, and they may have clothes on hand if a change of clothes is needed. They may have snacks, but there's no
But
meals.
they might not.
They might not.
And they might not have that size of clothes that that child needs. And they might not have extra formula. They might not have baby food. They might not have a sippy cup.
Sure.
And that happens.
Yeah. So what do these houses look like, and how many?
Yeah.
Well, how many are there right now across the nation?
Well, there are over 40 expansions in 11 different states.
Wow.
And let me pull this out because I
Yes,
got to read these
please,
states.
please.
So it's the most of them are in Tennessee because that's where it started.
Right.
And the second is Indiana. So we have 7 coming up.
Okay.
Counties that are expanding in different
Okay.
areas. There's Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Virginia, and Texas. And so right now, there are 16 open Isaiah117 houses.
Wow. So what does this house look like?
Yeah.
And how do the children get there?
Yeah.
Well, the houses are all the same, pretty much. They're all white with a black roof and black shutters and a red door.
So you
So
guys
they're
build
welcoming.
them?
Yes.
Are they built from scratch?
Or
Some of them
renovated.
are.
Or
Yeah.
renovated?
Yeah.
Or renovated,
But
yes.
renovated to all have this like similar model.
Similar look, yes.
Yes.
And
Okay.
it's designed, it'll have bedrooms and bathrooms, and it's not an office, it's a home.
It's a home.
And it'll have an in-home office area so that the caseworker can make those phone calls away from sensitive ears. They can do their paperwork, they can take a breath,
So
they
the
can have a cup.
caseworker comes to the
Yes.
house.
Yes, they have to. Yes, they have to.
So the caseworker has that removal. It's traumatic. It's difficult. They load up the children in their vehicle. Instead of going to that office, they can come to the Isaiah117 house. And then they can walk into a home. And these children will be met with our volunteers. This is volunteer run. And so it's met with our volunteers who are trained and certified. And they welcome them with open arms and with smiles. And the children can have bubble baths. They can have snacks, they can have a meal, they can play on the playground in the backyard, they can watch a movie, they can play video games, they can have a nap. Whatever they need.
Like a
It's
normal
focused-
child would,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
And it's focused on the needs of that child primarily.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just, you know, as I listen to this, I just think, you know, there's no other, and I've said this in other programs, there's no other faith-based, or no other faith that I'm aware of outside of the Christian faith that that does this kind of work or the kinds of charity, even, you know, beyond foster care in the world. Like I just haven't seen it, and I've traveled and been around, and so this is incredible.
Well, our God is a powerful God.
Yes.
Yes.
So how did this house get built? And
Yes.
so I'm just a foster mom.
And I'm like, I saw a video.
One step at a time.
Saw video.
I saw a video.
Well, we started sharing. I started reaching out to churches, to groups, to my family members, to all my friends that I know, and saying, let me share with you this incredible idea. Let me share with you the reality of what removal day looks like, what
So
foster
did you put
care
a video
begins.
together, a one-pager?
No, just
word
being,
of mouth.
We
Word
show
of mouth,
up and we
just
just
telling the
talk.
story. We just tell the story. We just share. I tell my story of foster care. I tell we tell the story of Isaiah117 house and how it began with Rhonda and her family and her little one that she had in her office named Isaiah, and they accepted into their home as their first foster child, and God ignites hearts in the community, and He's doing that everywhere, and it's incredible.
It's community-based. I mean, we have to have a number of volunteers. They're trained and certified for child caregiving, and we have a whole legion of other volunteers that do other things that aren't called to that. They're called to baking freezer meals that we can give to foster families as they go. They're house cleaners. They're, landscapers. They're there to organize donations and separate clothes and toys and things. And Emily and I are the only 2 employees there.
Wow.
And it's this community of volunteers. And not only that, it's our entire community, businesses in our community, churches in our community, individuals who have donated money, who have donated their time or their space or their talents or whatever to support us. And that's the funding. We get no government funding. We don't get funding from our resource center in Tennessee. We raise everything from our community.
And every community rallies around their own children.
Yes.
And it's truly a lifting up of these kids.
Wow, it's really
incredible to
incredible.
watch.
So does somebody live in the house or at all, or how does that work?
There's
Yeah.
no permanent resident. And we will just, when we get the call from Department of Child Services, our volunteers or we or whoever's assigned will go and meet them there, and then we just have our time.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
then
like on call
Yeah.
for whenever is needed.
Okay, so if a child has to stay for multiple days, then there's somebody.
The caseworker usually will stay.
The caseworker is the
caseworker will
one.
stay.
Are you really the caseworker will spend multiple days
they have to.
there?
Yeah.
Well, yes, caseworkers go to the house. They have to be there with the child because the child doesn't has to be. They're a ward of the state, and so
Yes.
they're in
For
the
that
custody of that caseworker until during that gap until a foster family is found. And so it's
Wow.
important that caseworker remains
And they may
there.
switch out. There might be a new caseworker come in and relieve someone, but there always has to be a caseworker there with the
Yeah,
child.
yeah,
So what are some of the things that you're seeing? Because I know you talk about trauma.
yeah.
And during that, during this transitional period, I don't know how much counseling you can do as it relates to trauma. I mean, you're obviously doing your part in helping to not, compound the trauma.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
By having, some of them probably want to just stay there.
Right.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how are you dealing with that? And,
Yeah.
what do you see happening with the foster care system and
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
Well, we want to first and foremost make sure that our volunteers are trauma-informed trained so that they're aware that a lot of the behaviors that these children aren't coming from a place that, oh, this is a bad kid. There's no such thing. These children are traumatized, and a behavior is an expression of an unmet
That's right.
need.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
it affects the way their brain has developed.
It
Yes.
does.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's important that all of our volunteers are sensitive to that.
So who trains them?
We have a training that we do for
Emily and I have been
Isaiah117
trained,
House.
and we've been trained on how to train.
Okay. So it's not like you're partnering with, let's say, like a licensed clinical mental health counselor or clinician who might be trained in trauma.
We do have communicate with the Department of Child Services about our training to make sure that it matches what foster parents receive when they have their
Okay.
training through DCS. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how do you? So I'm getting into the nitty gritty here, right? Because I'm thinking, for example, somebody who is state licensed, perhaps like a clinical mental health counselor,
Yeah.
also has liability insurance and all of that. How do you cover yourselves
Yeah.
in that area, right? Because you're taking children. I know the caseworker stays there,
Yes.
but then you're also doing this training of just common folks, right?
Yeah.
Well, and we don't provide any counseling services
Okay.
for these
Yeah.
children. And they're very vulnerable at this stage.
Yes.
And we just want to provide their comforts, their
Okay.
physical needs, their
Okay.
emotional needs. If they need to talk about something, we just provide a listening ear. We call the caseworker in if they need to disclose something.
Okay.
But it really isn't a counseling session. It's
Okay.
hey, do you want to play with Play-Doh? Let's play with Play-Doh.
What would make you feel
Yeah.
better in this moment?
Right.
What's
Right.
going to make you feel loved? What's going
Right.
to make you feel comfortable?
Because the
Right.
trauma-informed piece is just so that people
Just
are
so
aware.
they're aware and have better
Yes.
tools and understanding of what these children have gone through. And once you have a better understanding, you can have a better sense of empathy.
Yeah.
Yes.
We like to say
yes.
we're fun aunt and uncle.
Yes.
So you're going to come stay with fun aunt and uncle for a while, and we're going to play with
Right.
slime, and we're going to bake cookies, and then we're going to give you a bag full of new clothes and shoes and toys and blankets and whatever you need
Yes.
as you continue on your journey.
Right.
But you're, but this is obviously approved by the DCFS folks, right?
Yes.
Because they wouldn't be allowing, even though the case
Yes.
manager's coming. So this is all, a bona fide thing and
Absolutely.
and approved,
Yes.
right?
That's the first step.
yes.
Yeah.
Communicate
so-
with your DCS office and
Yeah.
to check if they'll even use the facility. Like, if they're not going to use it, there's no point in building
Right.
it, right?
Yeah.
So,
And in our case, what we did first before we even had our kickoff and our start is we contacted our local director and our regional director, our state director from Indiana. She was very supportive. We just received a new state director and he's also supportive. But we contacted our local and our regional and said, this is who we are. This wouldn't be a contract, but this is who we are. This is what we want to provide for you, for the children in your care. We want to love you and support you and encourage you. We want to ease that burden for you during that removal process. We want to, reduce trauma for these kids. We want to support foster families. Would you use us? And it was just overwhelming yes for us, and
Wow.
we're so grateful. We have an awesome relationship.
I think that's an important piece to say too, because
really is.
one of the three main goals of our ministry is to support caseworkers and everyone at the Department of Child Services, because they're often vilified.
Yes.
They're underappreciated. They're underpaid. They burn out quickly. They suffer a lot of secondary or sometimes firsthand trauma.
Well, sure.
And when they come to Isaiah117 House, they're our guests too. And we
Yeah.
give them coffee and a meal and ask what they need.
Yes.
Yes.
Opportunity to minister to them as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, this is great. So, do you have some stories?
Yes.
Would you please share
Absolutely.
some stories?
Yeah,
'Cause
I'd love to
I
read some
want to
stories.
hear some stories.
Yes.
I know our audience wants to hear some stories.
We love these stories from
Yes.
open homes,
Yes.
and these come from Isaiah117 House volunteers and program coordinators in other counties from open homes that have been serving children. Just a side note, the first Isaiah117 House did open in Carter County, which is where Ronda, our founder, is from, and it opened in 2018.
Oh.
And so it's not that long ago.
Wow.
It's,
Yeah, so
it's
this is a fairly
exploded.
new.
Yes.
new.
Wow, and it has exploded.
It has
Yes.
exploded. So here's one from an open home. After spending time at our Isaiah117 house with her siblings, one girl could not contain her excitement when telling her class at school where she had been the night before. You all would not believe the house I was at last night. It was a castle. You just wouldn't believe all the things in this house. What started off as a terrible evening for her and her siblings was soon countered by a home with lots of love, full bellies, and a supply of clothes that fit. And most importantly, the prayers of our volunteers for these tender hearts.
Wow, what a great story.
Yes. So this little girl, went to school the next day and was telling her teacher all the things that happened, and her teacher wasn't aware that she had been removed and was entering foster care. But as she was describing this house, she had heard of the Isaiah117 house and knew that that's what happened and where she
And
went.
so was she there just the one night then, or she?
We don't know.
We don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some of these cases, they're just there one night or maybe a few.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a teen who, this is kind of a side story, but there's a teen who we've kind of adopted as our little Isaiah117 house teenager. She's experienced a couple of Isaiah117 houses, and she's graduated from high school now. She's moving on with her life.
Okay.
But she said, we asked her how she felt in the Isaiah117 house, and she said, I couldn't tell you about the house. I don't know. I don't know what it looked like. I don't know what was there, what happened. I know it was the first time I ever felt love.
Oh. Yeah, and that's what you were saying earlier, that you wanted
Yes.
the love that your mom gave to you. You wanted that love to pour out of your life.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's so powerful.
It is. It is.
Love.
It changed the course of her
Yes,
life.
and it's not human love, because they're not feeling human love, and young people are very sensing and perceiving.
Yes.
They
so
are.
they know authenticity.
They do.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
They know that this person they just met doesn't love them to the ends of the earth.
Yes.
Yes.
There's someone who does.
Yeah.
And that's that's all about what we're about. We're here to tell these children, you've done nothing wrong.
It's not your fault.
This isn't your fault. You're not here because of you. And they have done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And that they are loved and they're worthy, they're valuable, they're
Yes.
seen by their community. This
Yes.
community knows about you and knows about this day and has built this house for you and
Yeah.
filled it with all of these things for you.
Yeah.
Because you are loved.
Instead of you waiting in an office for placement, this house has been waiting for you.
Yes.
Well, it's just this wonderful opportunity to plant the seeds of the gospel.
Absolutely.
And I also just want to add a caveat to that, that why do we want to plant those seeds? Because this is the truth, and the truth sets people free, and
Yes.
the love of God compels us. It's not like you're personally getting, some material thing out of this, right?
Right.
It's also a labor of love
It
for
is.
both of you as well to do this, right?
all of our
And you have to
volunteers.
practice your own self-care as you're dealing with, I mean, you have foster children, but you have to practice your own self-care so that when you go home to your children, right, that you're healthy, you're emotionally healthy.
And you have to really maintain a strong relationship with God, because
Yes.
I don't think many people could do this long term
Yes.
if they don't have a way to fill their bucket
Yes.
back up.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And I mean, I understand a little tiny bit of that. I was an educator for 23 years in different capacities. And for a period, my capacity was in counseling. And so I know, because there's an attachment to those, well, and for me, it would be a little bit longer term because I would see them regularly.
Yes.
There's that attachment, and it's like you just want to make everything well. It's like,
I just want to fix
want to
everything.
take you home and show you
right.
what a loving home looks like and make it all well. And,
Yeah.
but you can't do that.
Right.
But you do.
Yeah.
Some plant, some water, and then God gives the increase. And how they'll see this like later on in their lives,
Right.
too. Right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, I remember this place. I remember the smile. I remember the love. So you have a story, Holly,
Yeah.
too.
yeah. Which one should I do? We heard one today that we thought was particularly
Okay.
moving.
Because I hope you have a whole bunch.
We do.
We'll just go in order.
Tell they work together.
So this is a story from our Sevier County, Tennessee house. Teen. This is the teen talking. You really want me to throw the noodle? Volunteer. Absolutely. Let's do it together. If it sticks, it's ready. Teen. This is awesome. Our home holds so many heartbreaking stories, but it also holds smiles, hugs, laughter, and healing. This is holy ground, a sacred space where grace, love, and noodles are thrown with excitement.
Wow. And the teen said that?
No, that's what our
That's what the
volunteer
volunteers
Yes.
said.
Saying,
Yeah.
Emily, you have another one?
Yes. It says, sisters, they were inseparable. They came with no belongings and each desperately needed baths. When baths were done, they got Happy Meals and popsicles. Each got a bag full of new clothes, pajamas, and new shoes. They jumped and squealed after putting them on. A precious foster family said yes, and they were off with new car seats, duffels full of clothes, and a separate bag full of the toys they fell in love with while they were here. This is how we are changing the way foster care begins.
Wow, that is so good. I
Yeah.
sit here and I think about like all of the ills in our society now, all the things that are going on. And, and I've often looked up to the Lord and I've said, Lord, I know that, we're a nation that has a lot. We don't deserve your mercy. We've done a lot of bad things. But I said, but Lord, I also believe that there's such a remnant that is in this nation that so loves you and that is so charitable. And I don't know where else that is, because we give out beyond our borders too, right? And will you continue to have mercy on us? Because, there's that remnant there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
think there were-
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Rhonda tells a story. So when she was going through her foster care training, they went to the Department of Child Services office, and there they were told that children, when they enter foster care, they wait there. And she didn't realize that. And so she looked around and she was confused. And she said, "What do you mean they wait here?" And the caseworker said, "A little girl slept on this floor last night." And Rhonda will freely admit she had a lot of feelings at that moment, but she was angry.
Yeah.
And she wasn't angry at the Department of Child Services or the caseworker. She wasn't angry at the biological family members. She wasn't even angry at the foster care system. She was angry at God. And I think a lot of us get to that point that we say, "God, what are you doing? You know, where these are your children, you know,
Yep.
what are you going to do, God?" And that's what she said. And she heard God saying, "Yeah, these are my children. What are you going to do?" You know,
That's right.
that we've been placed
We're his
here,
hands and
that
feet.
we can
That's
be
right.
his hands and feet.
Yeah, it's really good. Another story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to make
Go
sure
ahead.
Yeah.
that we get a few more in.
Yes.
It was one of those moments when his life had been turned upside down. Walking through the red door, having nothing of his own, but sweet volunteers asking what he would like to eat. His response was that he would like to cook. He wanted asparagus, sweet potato fries, and hamburger helper beef stroganoff. So he and 2 volunteers had a great time while he cooked with the little assistants. The asparagus was a big hit, changing the mind of even one of the DCS caseworkers. He also left with new clothing, boots, tennis shoes, toiletries, and his head held a little higher. There is a house built with love, making a difference in the lives of children.
Oh, so good. Another one, Emily, that you
Well, I
have?
have the.
Here,
Oh, do you
I
want to
can
read it?
read-
Because
yeah,
I don't have my
absolutely.
glasses.
When they arrived, he put his head on the table and started crying. Our volunteers asked if he wanted anything, and he said all he wanted was his mom. They gave words of comfort and then gave him the space that he needed. They helped his sibling turn on Minecraft. And then 10 minutes later, he was sitting by his sibling watching the game. And 10 minutes after that, he had started to talk a little bit. And then less than an hour later, he was laughing and telling stories about the book series he found at the Giving Room. And he was getting ready for a full steak dinner as they had requested.
Aw.
A really hard day quickly turned into a great day because of our community.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, these are great stories. Great
Absolutely.
stories, just touching one little one's life.
I mean, even an older one. One of my favorite stories, which I wasn't going to.
No, well,
but
go
I
ahead.
can't
Go
help
ahead,
it.
Holly.
It's about a young man who was 16 or 17, came in shackles, and was standoffish and didn't have any time for any of our volunteers or anything we could offer, which is his prerogative. That's fine. And then they're like, "Okay, something to eat, something to drink," and he goes, "You won't have what I like to drink." So the volunteer is like, "Try me. If we don't have it, we will go get it." So he said, "Well, I like iced coffee." And that volunteer went to the cabinet and pulled out a brand new iced coffee maker that had never been used. And they YouTubed a video about how to use it, and how to do iced coffee. And he became the barista, and he made iced coffees for the volunteers and the caseworker and himself. And when he left, they just gave him everything. They gave him the iced coffee maker, all the syrups, all the cups and straws and
wow.
lids. Everything we had to go with it just went with him because that was the touchstone for him.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And you know, I sometimes think, like, I'm going to be like way back at the end of the line when we get to heaven. And all these like unsung heroes, all these people that you know, that just do these kind of daily things, this service here and a service there, and it's like God, none of that labor is in vain, and God sees all of that.
Yes.
And it's so amazing to me, it really. And so now, you know, my question is, what's next? What do you
Yeah.
see happening next?
Well, in our community, in our county, we are getting ready to start digging to build our house, and we're very excited. We've been serving our community as much as we can, serving our Department of Child Services. We dropped off breakfast this morning.
One of our volunteers made for them.
Yeah,
And we-
thanks to our volunteers
Yeah.
and our community that sponsors those, and they're just so grateful. And we serve as much as we can, but we can't wait for this house to be open, to have our volunteers. We have so many volunteers that are just ready.
And these volunteers are coming from the church or
Everywhere. There are
A lot from churches.
Yes.
A lot from just individuals who've heard us speak or heard about us through word of mouth.
Or
And
just
they
have a passion for foster care and
or
for children.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It really
so
is.
this is the second one now that, so will you be managing both of them or?
Well, there's only one house per county.
One house
generally,
per county.
Generally.
Oh, so
Yes.
this is- So who will be managing the new
Well,
house?
this will be our house.
Yes.
We don't have a house yet.
Oh,
in
yes.
our county.
This is yours. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
We've been
So-
fundraising and friend-raising
Yes.
for 2 years.
Yes.
We're getting ready to build.
So there are open homes in Indiana. There's an open home in Vanderburgh County, which is in Evansville. There's one that's open in Knox County, which is the Vincennes area.
Okay.
But we are excited. There are different ones that are in different stages of construction and are
Okay.
getting ready to open. But we're very excited
Wow.
to start our construction.
And for the organization as
Yes.
a whole, we're just bringing on new counties. As people hear about this, they're reaching out and asking for their own Isaiah117 houses. So Michigan just happened. Another one of the counties in Indiana just happened.
Yeah, and it takes somebody in that community to say, yes,
We need
this
this
is something that we need here, and reach out to our resource center in Tennessee
Yes.
and join the family. You know,
Yes.
we're all part of the same organization that
Yes.
is serving these children, and
Yes.
we can't wait for one to be open in our community as
wonderful.
well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, blessings on the work that you all are doing.
Thank you.
So excited. We hope that you'll give us an update.
We will.
When the house
Absolutely.
is actually built.
Yes.
Yes.
And-
We're hoping to cut a ribbon before this year is out.
Okay,
So we'll see.
all right. Well, we pray that that happens.
yeah.
And for those that are watching, I hope that you fell in love with this story and that perhaps you'll learn more about them by checking out their website and remembering that God loves you with an everlasting love.